I'm Mark Walker. I'm editorial director of the FinTech Times. I'm here with Chris at Web Summit Qatar. Chris, maybe just give us a quick introduction for people that don't know you.
Sure. I'm Chris Michael, the CEO and co-founder of Ozone API. We're a technology company that helps banks and financial institutions and central banks implement open banking and open finance all over the world.
Fantastic. So we've met quite a few times. We've met in Riyadh, in Saudi. We've met in Abu Dhabi. What's your status in those sort of regions at the moment?
Sure. I mean, probably the most relevant market to talk about right now is probably the UAE. We've been working with the central bank and a consortium of other partners to define the framework and the standards for open finance. So we started working on this back in February last year. The first version of the standards were published in August, the end of August. And we are just about to go live now with some of the top leading banks and financial institutions, sort of less than 6 months from when the standards were published. And it's a very comprehensive framework and a very comprehensive set of standards that probably goes well in advance of, in terms of the use cases it enables, goes well in advance of what we've seen in any other market globally. So, we've really been able to accelerate this model and the implementation now. And I say we're about to go live. I think the official launch date for open finance will be April, but we've already seen some of the banks going live in a sort of test mode, if that makes sense. And what's really interesting now is seeing what other markets in the region, particularly Qatar, what their response will be and how quickly they can get their open finance regulations, standards, frameworks going live now.
It's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, with the UK and places like Australia pioneering open banking to start with, the Middle East as a whole entire region seems to really have adopted it and embraced it much, much quicker than anywhere else. What do you think the reasons are for that?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, we're seeing, obviously, there's been a huge drive away from reliance on oil, tourism, property, but also financial services. So many of the markets in the Middle East are very much incentivized and trying to push financial services as a real enabler for the economy, to grow the economy. And so we've seen that initially in Bahrain, then in Saudi Arabia, then in the UAE. And now I think pretty much all of the markets are looking to implement either open banking or going straight to open finance. But what's interesting is that they can, because they are going after, following on from what's happened in the UK, Europe, Australia, and Latin America, there's an enormous opportunity to learn from, I wouldn't necessarily say mistakes, but to learn from and build on what we've seen in these other markets. So to do it better and quicker. So I think there's that's one factor, but also I think banks around the world are now looking at open banking, particularly, and looking at it as it's not just a regulation, it's not just a punishment as it was maybe perceived in the UK and Europe. It's actually a commercial opportunity. So certainly most of the banks that we talk to in the region here, they're not just looking to be on the compliance side to provide APIs. They're looking to act as a third party, as a fintech themselves, to consume those APIs and offer financial services themselves. So we're seeing a lot more interest from banks to embrace, if you like, open banking and open finance. And I think that's another enabler.
And obviously, finally, we're here at Web Summit in Qatar. This is obviously seen as a bringing of an innovation ecosystem together. What are your thoughts on the summit as a whole?
So I think it's a really interesting summit. I mean, it's got so many interesting facets to it. Compared to other maybe more focused summits around financial services, this is very generalist. It covers pretty much every type of digital innovation here, which I find personally very interesting. But yeah, I suppose I think it's not maybe as focused and maybe as relevant for certainly myself as other summits, but it's certainly very interesting.
Thank you very much for spending time with us at the FinTech Times.